Hello, I'm Montgomery County Auditor Keith, and I'm happy to welcome you to another episode of Auds and Ends, a program sponsored by the Montgomery County Auditor's Office to provide some important information to people in the community about the work of the Auditor's Office and county government in general, and just the community programs going on in the community. We each month, or each episode, we interview someone from the community who is playing an important role, and we're going to do that today. But first of all, I want to talk about the Auditor's Office a little bit in more detail. As the county auditor, I have a lot of different responsibilities, a wide range of roles that I play. Most people will recognize my name from the stickers on gas pumps, where the weights and measures guys checks those gas pumps. But we sell dog licenses and pay the county's bills, and so a wide range of responsibilities. But I also serve as the county's assessor, and that's an important role that we play and in the community every year, but it's particularly important this year because it's an update year for us. We're updating property values throughout Montgomery County. So we want to talk about that responsibility and how we see property values going and the state of the real estate market here in Montgomery County. And to help me do that, I've got the Director of Real Estate with me from our office. Doug Trout is here with me, and he, like I said, Doug is the Director of Real Estate and has been in the Auditor's Office now
more than a decade.
More than 10 years.
Yeah.
But prior to that, you worked in the Montgomery County Prosecutor's Office. You were an assistant prosecuting attorney. Can you tell us a little bit about your role when you were in the prosecutor's office?
Certainly. Thanks, Carl, for having me. I had the privilege of working at the Montgomery County Prosecutor's Office for about 10 years. And in my capacity at the Prosecutor's Office, I worked in the Civil Division. And it was certainly a fantastic education into the functioning of local government. My role included a number of clients, including representing township trustees and townships in various and sundry legal matters. I also served as the counsel for the Montgomery County Auditor and the Montgomery County Treasurer, and that's how we met. I was also involved in public records and a number of other appellate issues at the prosecutor's office. So certainly was exposed to a wide range of legal issues at the prosecutor's office, and I also, really enjoyed my time there and learning about the functions of local government in Montgomery County.
So you, like you said, you represented the auditor's office on real estate matters for a number of years.
Certainly, yes.
And the treasurer's office probably on tax delinquent issues and foreclosures, and so you had some background in the real estate. As again, I think probably representing the townships, you did personnel issues and all wide range of things, I imagine, working with them.
Absolutely, yes. Personnel, contracts, some litigation, but certainly when I came over to the auditor's office, I had developed a good bit of expertise in various real estate matters from a taxation standpoint, from evaluation, and also handling Board of Revision appeals at the State Board of Tax Appeals as well.
So we thought it was a great fit. We thought when we had an opening for the director's position, we thought, given your background and our experience with you, that it was a great fit. But we knew that was like a career change for you. I mean, you had been in the active practice of law, and while you've continued to keep your credentials and you've done your continuing education to keep your law degree active, it's a lot different, right? I mean, so is that a good thing? Are you happy you made that move, or would you like to hold that conversation for another time?
Oh no, I can speak to that. No, it was a wonderful change, and I remember you called me over, and I thought, you were a fairly easy client. We didn't have a lot of litigation. things were pretty smooth with us. And I was a little taken aback that I was called into Carl's office. You offered me the job, and I don't know if you recall this, but I said no. And I really have to credit my wife. I called her on the way back to the office and said, funny thing happened. Carl offered me a job, and she said, well, what'd you say? I said no. She goes, well, did you ask him what it pays or what it involves? And I said, no, it didn't really occur to me. And so she said, well, maybe you need to talk to Carl a little further. It might be a new challenge for you. It might be something you would really enjoy. And I have to credit my wife. She was fairly insightful. She knew.
Well, I'll have to thank her.
You will. Next time you see her. She knows I like people. She knows I like dealing with people. And really, I think a lot of what I learned working at the prosecutor's office was most legal problems are people problems. And she at least, and the other thing she said to me is she said, you always be a lawyer, no matter what you do. And you take that with you wherever you go. So, yeah, she talked me into reconsidering it, and it turned out to be a fantastic decision.
I think all of us in county government, quite frankly, because counties are the creatures of statute, the creatures of the law, and so all of us have to have some knowledge and some appreciation for the law. I tell people I practice law without a license all the time. But it's nice to still the prosecutor's office is still our legal counsel, so you don't play that role. But it's nice to have someone on staff who does have that background and has that experience, and I'm sure we call on it on a regular basis.
No, that's absolutely true, and it is helpful because I do have thoughts and I do have opinions. Doing it for a decade, but we have excellent representation, and I'm able to work with them pretty closely, and sometimes serve as the Rosetta Stone between the legalese and the day-to-day functions of the office.
So let's get down to this year and what's going on in the auditor's office this year. Again, you've been 10 years in the office, about a decade in the office, and so this is my 23rd. I've been in the office this fall. I'll be the auditor. I will have been the auditor for 23 years, and I've been in the office since 1991. And so I was doing some counting this week, and so I have been through 8 property value updates since I've been auditor, and was 4 updates when I was chief deputy auditor. So I've been through 12 of these cycles, and I think looking back over them, there's something different about every one of them. There's something unique, we've seen the market go up. We've seen the real estate market go down. We've seen values increase. We've seen gone through, housing crisis and a great recession. So this one is particularly unique as well, wouldn't you say?
Yes, I think that's a fair assessment. No pun intended. This is one for the ages.
Yeah.
The number, the strength of the market is notable, and I suspect we'll never see a market this strong in a 3-year cycle again. We are not in the business of predicting the future.
We don't have a crystal ball.
No. So we have to look at evidence, but in terms of number of sales and in terms of sale price, this has truly been unprecedented in my tenure here, but looking back historically, this is unprecedented as well.
So we've released the results, and we're preparing to send notices out to property owners so that they can see. And we're in the stage of this process where we're calling it tentative numbers. We have submitted our tentative numbers, our tentative abstract to the Department of Taxation. They have reviewed it. They have approved these tentative numbers. But there's still a lot more work that needs to go into this before they're finalized. And we offer property owners an opportunity to have some input. But at this point, this stage, we're looking at values going up $8.5 billion, a 34% increase in the county's total value. These are, numbers that we're referring to them as being off the charts. And it's a lot to do with the real estate market and how strong it's been.
Certainly. We really touch values every 3 years. And so people are sometimes shocked at the number, but when you look at 3 years of sustained growth, I think most people understand and really pay attention to what is selling in their neighborhoods. But when you see that number, yeah, it can be fairly shocking to folks. And ultimately, the reason we release these tentative values is to give people an opportunity to essentially check our work and have the opportunity to interact with our office before they actually become part of the basis of what your taxes are, which won't occur, of course, until 2024. And one of the issues we always have when we release these values is we don't truly know the taxable impact at that point.
Right.
But this office, one thing I really enjoy about working in this office is we pride ourselves on our transparency, in that we give people the information so they can evaluate the valuations, and we give them an opportunity that's essentially more than the law requires to have informal hearings where they can talk to our appraisers and make a case that, hey, my value is too high, it's too low, and that is really what we're going to be dealing with once we release these values between now and the end of the year when tax rates are released and we can actually see the true taxable impact. Right.
Yeah, we, seeing this type of, it's really across the board. I think we're looking at this point, 96% of property owners will see some increase in their value.
That's correct.
Which is, again, unprecedented numbers. I mean, we've seen some steady growth going since the end of the housing crisis, if I guess is fair to say. We lost $3.5 billion during the recession. We've regained that the last cycle. So this is all on top of that. We think when we're all said and done, we may top $40 billion as a total property value in Montgomery County. Again, a number that just 10 years ago we could never have imagined. But there's things that need to be done still to add to that. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Oh, certainly. The numbers that we've released so far don't include a few things, but one component of that is our agriculture and current agricultural use valuation parcels. These ag parcels will add a significant value. We also have not factored in our new construction value, which will be fairly substantial this year. We've seen a fairly healthy market in that regard, and so those two things alone will get us a little closer, and then there's a couple other items that go into the analysis, but I think the number we released was somewhere in the 38 billion. We certainly are going to be approaching 40 billion.
Yeah. So again, the question I've been out about, and you've been getting phone calls and emails from people, and that certainly will pick up once the notices go out and people see their actual values. But as I go out and about and talking with groups, and I've been talking with a number of groups, talking with the news media, one of the first questions you get, well, okay, I understand that. I understand the market's hot. I understand properties are selling at record-setting numbers and record-setting prices. What does that mean to my tax bill? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Certainly, and that is really the only reason people are particularly concerned about high property taxes or property values. They're concerned about the impact on their taxes. And
that's justifiable.
Yeah, and it's certainly understandable, because when someone hears something like 34% value increase, they assume, oh boy, my taxes are going to go up 34%. Thankfully, that's not the case, and primarily because most of what you pay on your taxes is what we call voted millage. And so that amount gets adjusted with our tax rates every year. And that's one of the things we need to wait until December for from the Ohio Department of Taxation. And the reason those rates adjust is for the most part, on voted millage, the rates adjust so that we're not collecting less or more than people vote on. Now, there is a portion of your taxes that does go up and down proportionally with our value. And that's really what we've been out talking about. And that's what's called inside millage. It's guaranteed by the Ohio Constitution. And based on that, our best estimate, assuming no new levies, assuming everything equal, a typical home with a 34% increase will see about a 4 to 6% increase in their taxes. So it is something, and it's not that it's insignificant, but it's nowhere near the numbers that you see on the headlines where you see a 34% increase in residential values.
I get that. I'm sure you get that. People have seen that 34%, or initially the tax commissioner recommended a 37% increase for Montgomery County. Again, and that's an aggregate number. And so it will vary widely across communities, right? I mean,
oh, certainly. Yeah, there will be people on both sides of that, since that's an aggregate average. There's variation within communities, and then within each community, there's significant variation in neighborhoods.
in their neighborhoods.
And that's really, we drill down to the neighborhood level. The Ohio Department of Taxation, they set targets for us based on the community, and so we have to hit those targets. We always come in under. Because there's a bit of negotiation and back and forth with the Department of Taxation, but ultimately they set the target and they approve our final values. So we have to receive approval, but we do have discretion when it comes down to drilling down into those neighborhoods, and we delineate our neighborhoods based on similar housing, and that is, we feel, the best way to do it, the most fair way to do it, because the way you judge what we do is whether similar houses are valued similarly. In the industry, they call it fair and equitable valuations. So the way to judge how this triennial update is going is to look at homes in your neighborhood and see how they're valued compared to you.
I always tell people when we were having these discussions, they'll say we look at values and the market and sales within neighborhoods. So we're not comparing sales that have occurred in Dayton to sales that have occurred in Centerville, or sales that have occurred in Huber Heights. We're looking at sales not your community, but within your neighborhood. And that our definition of a neighborhood is a little bit different than some other people. We have about 1,100 residential neighborhoods. Is that right?
That's correct.
And so some of those would just be a handful of properties. Every condo association in the county is its own separate neighborhood because it's a kind of a unique housing stock. Or it could be several thousand. I live in the Belmont neighborhood in Dayton. It's probably one of the largest, and I think there's 2,500 properties in that neighborhood. So it depends on the housing stock and what makes the most sense to us to come up with comparables. And that's what we're trying to do.
Yes, we are. And for the work that we do, this year more than any other year, we have more data to work with.
Right.
As you alluded to earlier, we have more sales, and so more sales increases the likelihood that we're going to have sales in all of our neighborhoods, and a significant number of sales. And this allows us to make better, more informed decisions. And it allows taxpayers and homeowners to really check our work and to see what they're actually being compared to. And I think that's an important part of this process. People often assume, we always raise values. We don't. We've in my time here, we've had to lower values.
Right.
And so we
significantly during the housing crisis.
And those are tough conversations. I deal with a lot of tough conversations in my role, but they're not always my value went up too much. Sometimes It's like, why did my value go down? And so part of this process is for people to review what is actually selling in their neighborhood. Many people know, but others don't. And we make that information readily available so you can look at that and evaluate whether an adjustment may be warranted with your valuation before the taxes are calculated, before we get our rates. and before there's a more formal process that is required under Ohio law.
I think it's important too for people to realize that we are not alone. That every county in Ohio is required to do this, and they follow a schedule. Now we don't always do. All the counties don't do it at the same time, but we are on the cycle. There are 41 counties in Ohio this year that are either doing a comprehensive revaluation, which was what we did in 2020, or a market update, which is what we're doing this year. 41 counties across the state, and some of our neighbors are doing this. So Greene County is doing an update this year, and they're looking at a 29% increase. Franklin County, Columbus, is looking at a 41% increase. So this is going on all across the state.
Yes, yeah. This is a statewide issue, and the market is strong across the state.
Not only across the state, really across the nation.
Yeah, and of course it's a national trend. Property values have been going up all across the U.S. States vary. Once you get outside of Ohio, how the duration between when assessments are made can vary considerably. But in Ohio, we do it every 3 years, and that the benefit of that is that if you do it more often, then the value you can check those values at a greater frequency. There are some states that don't do things for a decade, and you can imagine what happens if you don't revalue properties.
There's some sticker shock.
Yeah, in Georgia or in New England,
right.
And you don't do it for 10 years.
So we're getting ready to send notices out to property owners, and so those notices will tell them their new tentative value, and will give them some instructions if they want to challenge that or have questions about that. So what will they be able to do?
Okay, so the first thing we want people to do is once they receive their letter, we have some tools available to them online to look at. The letter is going to simply say, it's going to identify your property, it's going to show your old value and your new value. So you want to look at that and see if you think that's out of line with what the market's doing right now. And then you can go to mcreval.org, and we're going to have some tools that I'm pretty excited about for people to utilize. Number one, we'll have a video that will give a basic overview of why we
it's
do
all
the
about.
triennial
Mm-hmm.
process.
Mm-hmm.
In addition, we will have neighborhood maps in our GIS, geographic information systems, that will allow you to look at your neighborhood. You can search by name, you can search by address, you can search by your parcel ID if you know it.
And one thing it does, it allows you to see your neighborhood, because we get that question a lot.
Yeah.
Well, what does my neighborhood look like?
That's correct. So not only will you see what your neighborhood looks like, it's interactive.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see what properties sold in your neighborhood, and that system will default to 2022 because that's the most recent year. It's closest to the tax lien date that we have to hit for valuation, which is January 1 of 2023. But you can also go back and look at 22, 21, and sometimes that gets messy because there are so many sales in neighborhoods that the screen fills up pretty quick.
I've seen some of these maps. Yeah,
certainly,
yeah.
depending on the neighborhood. So you can go in and you can click on every property that is sold, and you can see the old value, you can see the new value, and then there's a couple benefits to this. Number one, you know exactly what you're being compared to, and so that's valuable because if your house is distinguishable, as we said earlier. We try to group these by similar housing. But if your house is fundamentally different than the ones that are selling, maybe those are in better condition. Maybe they've been updated and yours hasn't. So those are the sales we see, but it also empowers you to advocate for yourself and your valuation if you think your home is fundamentally different from those. So we've always done this, but we've made it a lot easier this year.
Providing some more tools for people to use.
To give people, the tools, because, when something sells, we know what it's worth. Some people have appraisals. But those things aren't necessary when we talk about our informal hearings. We're giving people the opportunity to look at the data we used and that helps them determine, okay, these values are fair and equitable. My value is not fundamentally different than what is selling in my market. Or if you come to the opposite conclusion, then this is the time to call, have a Zoom session with our appraisers, and get an adjustment before the tax rates come in, before taxes are calculated, and before you'd have to go through a more formal process through the county board of revision.
So we're going to do informal reviews like we do every cycle, and I think people have gotten used to that. I can remember when I first came to the auditor's office and we first started that process, it was something new and different, and people weren't aware of how that worked. But we've been doing this every cycle now, and so I think property owners are used to that. In the past, we would have gone to remote locations around the county, different places with different communities, 10 or 12 different communities where people could meet with us. But we went to Zoom, doing these through Zoom meetings in 2020, which, again, the pandemic forced us to do that. But it really worked out very well, and I think it's convenient for the property owner. It's convenient for the appraisers. We can get to these a lot quicker and schedule them a lot. Sometimes people will call, and in the past they were calling, and we were scheduling like the next day or later that day. So that's what we're going to do again this year. But we have a different way of scheduling them. They can still call us, but we have a different way of scheduling them this year.
Absolutely. We built internally built a scheduler. And so the technology is similar to what people are used to in scheduling a restaurant reservation or just about anything else.
Buying a ticket to the movies anymore.
Certainly,
yeah.
Right. Yeah. So we try to make it really convenient. So once you kind of check your neighborhood, and if you say, geez, I need an appointment with an appraiser, we make that readily available. You can call us, but also you can go and schedule it, and we are offering appointments within about a day and a half of when you're scheduling them. Mm-hmm. So we learned a lot during the pandemic because we were forced to change our ways, but we have found that Zoom and phone meetings are absolutely the best way to efficiently handle these kind of meetings. It allows people to do it from the convenience of their home. It allows them to do it on a break at work. Mm-hmm. And you get,
they don't have to travel.
Yes. So certainly the self-scheduler should be a nice tool to make it convenient for people to have an opportunity to present their case for what I'm assuming in most cases will be a value reduction. I guess there are scenarios where somebody might want a value increase. It'll probably be a lower percentage this year than normal, though.
We've had that in the past. We've certainly had that in the past.
We definitely
have. Again, sometimes there's an issue of pride that comes to play here, and so the tax. You take the tax scenario out of it. This is an important thing for the homeowner, important thing for the community. For most people, their home is the largest investment they'll ever make in their lives. And so it is an investment, and you want to see it appreciate. You want to see it increase in value. Some of the toughest, as you said earlier, some of the toughest conversations I've had during my career was in 2008 and 2009 when values were dropping dramatically, and you talk with people and say, well, the value of I've lost all the equity in my home. It's worth less now than I paid for it 10 years ago. I mean, those were really tough conversations. I'd much rather have these conversations. It means a lot more for the community. It means a lot more for the individual homeowner.
Certainly. If it weren't for the perception about taxes, it's always good news when your biggest asset increases in value.
Right.
So they want to hear it from Zillow typically, not the county auditor.
Right. Well, we probably talk more about this. We could probably talk about this all day, right? We've been talking about it for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I do want to make sure that everyone, they'll get the phone number when they get their notice, but I want to share the number with everyone. It's 937-224-8927. 937-224-8927. 8927. That's our property owners hotline. It's not up and running currently, but it will be once those notices come out, and that number's in the notice, and they can call us at that and get questions answered. We found in the past a lot of times people once they talk to us, they can get their questions answered, and they don't even have to have a hearing. So that will be available too. We will have people available to. It's not a recording. You'll talk to a live person, and hopefully people will take advantage of that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. My staff, they're very experienced in dealing with these issues. And we know we will get calls from people that are concerned, and they do a real outstanding job explaining what's actually going on and what it might mean to them. And we'll be here not only right after you receive your valuation, we'll be here at the end of the year when you get your when we calc the taxes. We'll be here if people need border revisions. So yeah, my staff's well equipped to serve the community.
We know that it's going to be an exciting summer. We know it's going to be exciting all the way through the fall, and when this is finalized, that this, again, gone through a number of these projects over the years. They're always unique. They're always a challenge, but it's an important responsibility of county government, important responsibility, again, to provide support for local schools and for human services and a wide variety of vital services. This is the foundation of that, and so we appreciate the opportunity to serve the public. Doug, thank you for being here with us today. I appreciate you and the work that you have done over the years. I appreciate your broad shoulders and your thick skin as we go through this process. And we look forward to serving the public and answering their questions and responding to their concerns going forward. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for this episode of Odds and Ends, and we will talk to you next time. Thanks.